Alright, so finding probabilities when we do not have our mean of 0 and our standard deviation of 1. Like I mentioned, it's not super different from what we have been doing. A little added business to it, but not anything super complicated. First step, of course, is to create our normal curve. Now keep in mind that when we create these normal curves, it's not going to have that mean of 0 and standard deviation of 1. So we're going to have to read the problem, figure out what they say the mean is for our situation, use the standard deviation to label then all of the other parts. So not anything particularly difficult about that, just making sure you label it appropriately for the situation. Once you've labeled it, then of course they're going to ask what's the probability of this value in the population, and so at that point we can then go ahead and shade. Figure out whether it's less or greater, whether it's going to be left or right. See if we anticipate a high probability, a low probability, medium size probability, or whatever it is they're asking about. This point is when the extra part comes in, because now that we've shaded, we can see the graph, yay. It would be time for us to go and look at our table, but our table is not going to have, an x value equal to 75, or whatever they're talking about. So that's when we have to do a little conversion. And that conversion happens with the z-score. So you have to use the z-score formula to find the numbers, find the z-score for the numbers in the question. Now, in most cases, if they're asking a less or greater, it's just going to be one number you need. But if they are asking you one of those problems about between two values, then you have to find z-scores for both of those numbers. Once you have your z-score, then you can actually go to your table, figure out what the probability is that is appropriate for your situation. Of course, if it's something that's greater, then you might have to do that 1 minus. It's betweener, you have to subtract two values, and you have your probability. Once you have your steps down, you can go ahead and get a colored pencil or two, which and find graph paper already out. Look at some materials. We're going to start out with number 38. Which is looking at the reading rates of some 6th graders. Remember a couple weeks ago we were talking about reading rates and how many words per minute one reads. And so it tells us here in our paragraph that we have a mean of 125 with a standard deviation of 24. So take a moment on your graph picture there and label a normal curve with a mean of 25. Number 38. And then, of course, use your standard deviation of 24 to set up your increments. $38. Questions about setting up our record? Well, your mean is at 125. And then you do your standard deviation. So you have some mean has a z-score. The standard normal. I don't know. I thought I wanted to scratch that one out. Any other questions on graphing it? Creating graph, I guess, in better words. Alright, so question A then says, what is the probability random sixth graders read less than 100 words per minute? So we want to determine the probability that they have less than 100 words. And so, of course, first thing I'm going to do now is color in less than 100. So that should be slightly left of my 101. And we color. Where 100 is from the problem 38. Now at this point we need to figure out what we need to look up on the table, because obviously the table doesn't have values like hundreds and 125s and things like that. So we need to calculate the z-score for the value of 100 so we can figure out what we're actually going to look up on our normal table. So looking for 100. We have a mean of 125, and we have a standard deviation of 24. So what do we get for? We get for obviously. Oh.
The same answer kind of, but like different, like the first answer this round was 1.40, the negative 1.4, when I just negative 1.04.
Sounds like we should play the lottery.
31
Questions about finding our z-score? Now keep in mind that when we go to the table in the back, our z-score does have 2 decimal places, so when we find the z-score we want to keep 2 decimal places. So really what we're going to look up is the probability that z is less than negative 1.04. Since it is less than, our table is just going to give us the number that we want for our answer. Our table does less probabilities. So we go and look up negative 1.04. Oh, I get it. And what do we get?
You get 0.1492.
Great. When Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Goes 100 minus 125 is negative 1.
How'd you get 0.1492?
Looking on my table. We have the negative 1.04.
So every time we get like one of the answers like that, we have to look at on the table.
Right, because this is, so they want the probability is less than 100. This is the z-score for less than 100, because the z-score is what our table reads. And then we go to our table and actually look it up. It's called the wrong one. Good, you're probably going to keep talking. Oh. Other questions?
What did we get our test?
Yeah, put next class, so we'll see.
There's a quiz on.
We've learned the uniform, and we learned this stuff. All right, so let's move on to 38B. Which says we want the probability of running a sixth grader reads more than 140 words per minute. So 140 will be somewhere to the left of 145. And it says more than, so I'm going to shade to the right. Oh, it was 140, so it's a little bit over. Smidge over. All right, so once we've shaded, now we can determine our z-score. So we need the z-score of 140. What do we get? Six? 2.63? Independent compilation. 6?
Wait, where'd you get it? Oh, never mind. I got your numbers. Okay.
So, for our table, we're going to look up the z that is greater than 0.63. Since it is a greater problem, is there anything special that needs to happen? Yes. We got to do the complement. So once we look up 0.63, we're going to have to complement that number, since we're looking for a probability that's to the right, not to the left. When you look it up? So that's 0.2643. Hello? What's up? His seventh period is taken care of. His fifth period was, Ms. Curry said she already had somebody worked out for that. Oh, great. Yeah, she said that she had a substitute who was supposed to be covering that class. Yeah, my guess would be maybe there was a confusion with lunch, perhaps. Yeah. You're welcome. We have a teacher who is out this afternoon, and so there was no substitute for them. So we have people, because I was told, so we can cover their separate things. Apparently, it's supposed to go to the New York 5th, but... Any other questions on me? Then let's go to C. C says with probability between 110 and 130 words. So 110 being over here somewhere. 130 somewhere. Yes, we have to find the Z-score. Cool.
So is one of them going to be in the back? No. Both of them are in the back of the book, right?
Yep.
Don't want them in the back. Because one of them X is less than 130, and the one X is greater than 110. Right?
I'm not exactly sure what you're asking then by what's going to be in the back.
Like it's in the table.
Yeah.
If it's going to the right, isn't it supposed to be, or in this case, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so it doesn't matter, because what do we do when we have between problems? We subtract them. So we look up the larger one and then subtract the smaller one from it.
Bless you.
Is the average?
We're going to subtract when we get our values off the table.
I've never been there. If I want to go out,
You need 2 decimal places because your table deals with the 2 decimal places on your Z-score.
And only decimal places.
So we're gonna do all this writing out,
Say it.
we're gonna do all this working on
This is not fair. So remember, we're doing ones that are in between. We have to find the value for the larger Z-score. Then we're going to subtract off the value for our smaller Z-score. The larger Z-score, of course, gives us all of this. And then the smaller Z-score will allow us to subtract off that piece that we don't want. So we start off by looking at 0.21. And so it looks like 0.5832. And then we're going to subtract off the value from negative 0.63. So 0.2643. And then I use my incredible powers of subtraction. Ta-da! So my final answer is about 32%. Questions? Yes.
How do you know which one to subtract?
You always start with the larger. They're just like elementary school larger minus smaller.
I have to find the point system.
0.63 was from the Z-score.
Oh, well, I mean like the 2643.
Oh, that's from looking at the negative 0.63.
Oh.
Any other questions? All right, our last one then, 39 or 38D, says that they would like to know if it's unusual for a 6th grader to read more than 200 minutes. So we want to figure about greater than 200. Wait, that's not the right chart. charge.
The little shady part. What you back there?
I just do it on this one. Alright, so we want greater than 200. And so I go to my graph, obviously, it's colored in, and I go, oh. Now, normally, if we were trying to decide something was unusual, we would now go and figure out the probability so we could decide. But let's be real here. There ain't nothing in color. And let's also keep in mind that the empirical rule tells us that once you get between -3 standard deviations and +3 standard deviations, you've encompassed 99.7% of your area. That means there's less than 1% allowed out here on both sides. So is that unusual? It is, very much so. So we don't even have to do the calculation. I can tell you because it's out here in the tail, it's unusual. Hurried. No question. Unusual.
Except for what grade?
6th grade.
Yeah.
Questions? All right, so take a few minutes. Try number 37. Start by figuring out what your graph's going to look like. Figure out your probs. 37.